So yes, thank you for coming. We're excited to be here. As Jill said, this is our first presentation we're making. STEM of PA, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Math, University Partnership for the Advancement of Academic Women in Pennsylvania, is a National Science Foundation grant. It's a 4-year grant we were awarded in September, so we're just getting started with it. And it's part of their advanced paid initiatives. So just a couple of quick definitions, if you're not familiar with these programs. Advanced grants look at increasing the participation and advancement of women in STEM fields. One of the branches of advanced grants are paid grants, and these are partnerships for the adaptation, implementation, and dissemination of materials. Okay? So that leads us to our program. We're a multi-university institution partnering with the ITN. So Elizabethtown College, Shippensburg University, Harrisburg University of Science and Technology are all part of this program. I'll get into the details more in a little bit, but we're looking at issues that help to promote women in the academic STEM fields. Okay, so first let me begin by introducing our project leadership team. From Shippensburg, I'm Kate, a mathematician at SHIP. Robin McCann is a co-PI. She's a chemist, but they have their national chemistry meeting, and she's in San Diego, where I'm sure the weather is not as nice as it is here today. And next, Alice Armstrong, computer scientist at SHIP, and Margaret Light, our project manager. From Elizabethtown College, Heather Kannenberg, social worker, professor, and Rick Bason's also here today. He's part of our program. From Harrisburg University of Science and Technology, Christina Dryden and Billy Mattis. And finally, you all know Jill Edwards. She's part of our leadership team as well. Okay, so before I get into talking about some of the details of our project, I just want to talk a little bit about the rationale for our project. As many of you know, or as maybe all of you know, there's an issue with underrepresentation of women in the STEM fields. And actually, many of the national academies have looked at this issue, and in a report they published a few years ago, they said it's really not the lack of talent of women, but it's in fact not having enough women in these fields, but it's unintentional bias and outmoded institutional structures that hinder the success of women in these fields. So we're looking at, our project's going to look at addressing gender issues at mainly teaching universities, unlike Research One universities. Okay, so if the question now is, if we want to address this gender inequality and try and come up with a program that promotes gender equality in the STEM fields, we need to ensure, the research has shown, that there's a solid pipeline in place. We need a solid pipeline of women doctoral students and candidates in the STEM disciplines. But the problem is, even though if we have this in place, we've seen that we're losing women. We're not getting enough women into the STEM field, even though the pipeline might be in place. There are some problems with how the numbers actually play out. In 2008, about 50% of the population is women, although in the faculty positions, we see that men are outnumbering women 2-to-1. And if we dig a little deeper at these numbers, we see that women are, even within this group, are clustered less into the STEM fields than other fields, and with lower ranks, not making full professor at the equivalent rate of male faculty members. So part of this phenomenon has to do with something that's been called the leakage in the pipeline. What's happening? What are some of these issues that we're losing women during different stages of their academic careers? Some of the reasons, consensus of literature has shown us, here are some of the reasons. There is some gender inequity in hiring policies and practices. There's a lack of satisfaction work environment, either in terms of promotion, in terms of leadership opportunities, in terms of time. There's unclear bias promotion advancement criteria. There's a higher teaching service expectation for women faculty, and often that doesn't directly correlate to maybe their own professional ambitions. Lower ranks and salaries for women than men. Discipline-based prejudice, such as work-life balance issues. and fewer opportunities for professional development, especially in terms of mentoring and leadership. And then a general dissatisfaction with perceived job security. So these are a lot of the issues this is work that's come before us, that's been done before us. And so these are some of the issues that women have faced. So we're looking at some solutions. Some solutions that researchers have said is that we need to move beyond traditional models of faculty recruitment, retention, and advancement to more inclusive models. And there's been lots of successful advanced programs that have done just this. Come up with mentoring and leadership programs. Billy will talk more about that in a minute. But I do want to point out what's different about our program. A lot of the big advanced grants that have gone on have been at big research universities. Shippensburg, Elizabethtown, Harrisburg are more teaching-related universities, so we're looking at this from this lens. Okay. So our program, STEM Up PA, our goal is to develop a sustainable professional climate that helps to support academic women across central Pennsylvania. There'll be a recruitment component, a retention component, and an advancement component. And again, my colleagues will say more about some of this in a few minutes. The intellectual merit of the proposal includes research, and then it centers on the adoption of these policies and techniques to help us with career advancement for women in the STEM fields. And again, the focus will be on non-research intensive institutions. The broader impacts of the program, that we hope that the research will help to inform policies at the large number of teaching universities and colleges across the country. So the projected goals, we have 3 goals of the project. Goal 1 is to do a climate assessment, a research study, and Heather is a social science researcher. She's leading this component. She'll say more about it in a minute. But she's looking at goal 1 with an outside research crew. And hopefully this research will inform campus-specific policies and practices. Goal 2, I think Billy and Christina are going to say something more about this in a few minutes. We're working with ITN to leverage and develop a professional network among academic women in central Pennsylvania, and then to adapt policies and programs that have been successful at other universities. And finally, goal 3, Alice will say some more about that, but we're developing a web presence and a social media site. Okay, so here's a breakdown of how the 4 partner institutions how we're working together. We're split, Shippensburg far to the west, and I guess E-Town to the left, to the east. But here's a breakdown of sort of how we work together. So I'm going to turn it over now to Heather. Heather's going to talk a little bit about the research.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Good.
Good. Thanks for coming out and for being here today in this great event, but also for being interested in hearing more about the project that's sort of taking place in your community and that we're really excited about. So I'm Heather Kannenberg, and I am an assistant professor of social work at Elizabethtown College. I am a social scientist on the team, and usually when we all introduce ourselves, everyone sort of does like my dog does and goes, huh? Social work? But I do the social science research piece, and historically my research area is in doing policy analysis. And so this fit really appropriately with me when it turned out that Elizabethtown College was going to be a partner in the project. Fortunately, Rick Basom, my colleague at Elizabethtown, said, I think we have a faculty member who does this. So I was really thrilled to be involved. Goal 1 of our research, as Kate has said, is really to better understand the policies and procedures and those structural elements that are in place that impact all that great data she told you about, not so great data, about women in the STEM disciplines and that pipeline, whether we stay in the pipeline or whether it leaks, whether we sort of find our way outside of the system and the environment. And so our work will be working as an institution, and we have a contracted research partner, Research for Better Schools, who's going to be doing some work with us. Looking at recruitment policies, looking at policies that relate to promotion and tenure, looking at things, policies that we have in place at our institutions that assess, pardon me, I'm sorry, I touched the bottom of that. looking at the policies we have in place that promote retaining women in the discipline as faculty once they do enter into the college or university system. And then all of that really translates to what we find over and over again, work-life balance policies. And I've heard the provost of Lehigh College talk about all of these things as truly being about work-life balance policies, which I love hearing people sort of do that work. So we'll be doing policy analysis. We're going to ask our 3 institutions as well as 2 other additional partner institutions to share tenure policies, faculty handbooks, HR policies around recruitment processes and things. And I'll literally be doing an analysis and teasing apart how those are structured, what we do, how those are framed to determine if we in fact have barriers or if we have wonderful strategies to promote more women and diverse women in the disciplines. And so I'll be looking for best practices, barriers, and then opportunities for innovation, for change, building on our other partners. If we do have best practices in the region, then how can we make that change? And as Kate said, our uniqueness really is around our size and mix of our leadership team. Much of the research that has come before us has been conducted at Research One institutions, at very large institutions. And so we have some nice smaller size regional schools that also have a teaching focus to their work, and we're really pleased to be able to look and sort of assess, are things different in this different environment and context? That's our goal. That's our sort of one of the things, fortunately, that the National Science Foundation said was beneficial about what we were doing. So, okay. So what in order to accomplish that task for goal 1, I'm busy building partnerships. I'm meeting folks at other institutions. As you can imagine, asking for tenure policies and faculty handbooks, HR policies, can be a little threatening, I think, for institutions. There's a political element to that, and so we're building relationships and partnerships and asking for people to work with us. And we're committing to sharing the same information and opening our doors just as we're asking them to. So hopefully we'll be able to leverage that work. We'll be collecting data in the form of all those policies and doing an analysis of it. Trying to determine what serves as barrier, what serves as the best practice. And then our hope is we'll be able to come back to ITN meetings, we'll be able to come back to other events in the region and share what we found with our partners, both with industry and with other institutions of higher learning. Not just our partners either, but our region and across the state and then ideally nationally about what's been done, what works well in these unique teaching-focused institutions. What can we work to replicate? How can we create change? And then the really nice thing is that because this is a 4-year grant, we've designed it a bit as an iterative process. And so we'll do this work and then have a chance before the project is done to come back and see if we've had any institutional policies changed, anything that's been amended or addressed. So that's our goal with this work. And we're going to have an opportunity after we go through everything, to hear from you, your thoughts, your feedback, any questions you have. And so I hope you'll chime in there, particularly with regard to any of the questions we have for you about how to make this more meaningful for our community. So I'm going to turn it over now to Billy.
Hi, I'm Billy Mattis. What's that? Clicker?
Okay.
Thank you. So building on the research, which will inform our activities, goal 2 really is about activities and what we can do to create an environment in central Pennsylvania that is welcoming, conducive to women faculty in STEM disciplines, being here, living here, teaching us and our kids and those to come. So to do that, there are 3 main areas based on the activities that we've seen in other advanced grants. One is the recruitment area, not just looking at policy, but how do we influence practice? And there's a lot of good work that's been done, for example, at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, that we're going to take and build on. There's no sense in recreating the wheel. It's tried and true. And Christina Dryden, my colleague from Harrisburg U, is going to talk a little bit more about that. I'm just going to turn it over to you, and you can talk about that, and then I'll talk about the rest of it.